in the room and coming to Fort Collins this afternoon. This story has garnered worldwide attention. On Monday, February 4th, around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, a report came in that a mountain lion had attacked a runner who was using the West Ridge Trail at Horsetooth Mountain Open Space here in Fort Collins. Travis Kaufman, who was our trail runner, was able to defend himself from the attack, resulting in the mountain lion's death. He sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries as a result of that attack. For those of you who are not from Colorado or from the Rocky Mountain West, we'll be talking today about mountain lions. These are not panthers, black panthers, or African lions. They are sometimes called cougars or pumas. Mountain lions are native to Colorado and typically live to be about 12 years old. Males grow to about 8 feet long and can weigh up to or around 150 pounds. Females average between 90 and 110 pounds. We have provided still photos of mountain lions in the press kit that you will receive at the conclusion of today's press conference, and they are also included in the mountain lion brochure that was on your chair when you arrived. As we go through this, I'm going to ask that you hold all of your questions until we have Travis at the table after the video interview. I'd like to welcome Northeast Region Manager Mark Leslie, Markleslie. Again, he's the Northeast Region Manager for Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Good afternoon. Sure. I'd like to thank you all for your time and attendance today. The past 2 weeks has been the culmination of professionalism on the part of Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff, Larimer County Department of Natural Resources staff, cross-jurisdictional service to the public, and an incredible survival of a mountain lion attack. And I do want to give a special shout out to our Larimer County partners here that are in attendance today, because without them, we wouldn't have been able to do what we were able to do. So thank you very much, guys. We all feel extremely lucky that this attack was made by a young mountain lion on a knowledgeable runner. Otherwise, we may be hosting a very different press conference today. I want to let the gravity of that statement sink in a little bit too. These animals are ambush predators and are trained to take quick and lethal action whenever possible. Though the mountain lion in this case was young, you'll clearly see the damage that even a young lion can do when it attacks. These lions are especially powerful. We're all wondering why this happened to Travis, and unfortunately, there isn't a clear answer to that question. As wildlife managers, we face a growing challenge in balancing a booming human population, increased outdoor recreation pressure, and an abundance of mountain lions on the Front Range. The human-wildlife interaction is a very real reality for all Coloradans. Ty Petersburg, our area wildlife manager in the Fort Collins area, will detail our investigation of the February 4th incident, as well as in the days following, where Colorado Parks and Wildlife officers and biologists removed 2 additional mountain lions from the area. I'll turn it over to Ty.
Thank you, folks. Before we get started, I'm Ty Petersburg, T-Y, and the last is Petersburg, P-E-T-E-R-S-B-U-R-G. I'm the area wildlife manager here. We cover Area 4, and I supervise our field operations staff out of our Fort Collins office. Mark did as well. I want to just do a special thank you to Larimer County. They did a tremendous job of giving us a hand. They need to be recognized for their work. Additionally, I just want to recognize my staff. They worked a lot of long hours and days off and did a tremendous job, as well as our biologists. And before we go too much farther, I just want to recognize Travis, the fellow you're going to hear from today. It's an incredible story, and he's a pretty amazing young man you'll get to meet with a warrior's heart. So keep this positive. This could have been a much different outcome, and I want you all to just keep in mind of what he's been through and just the incredible story he has. It really was a fight for survival. On February 4th, about 3 o'clock, we got a call from the hospital about a man who'd been attacked by a mountain lion. My staff responded, and we were able to interview him in the hospital, where he gave a pretty incredible account of getting in a fight with this lion where it had ambushed him from behind. He turned around and was able to face it. He did all the right things. He put his hands up, he yelled at it, and it still came after him. He gave us an account about how he got the lion off of him and how at the end of it all he asphyxiated the lion and left it on the trail, he thought. He wasn't sure if it was dead or not, but he left the area and ran about 3 miles out where he was helped by some other people. Our officers responded that night, and by 5 or 5:30 they were on scene and were able to confirm that there was a young lion up on the trail. And everything seemed to match what we had heard from Travis. They looked at the lion, they were able to find his belongings, they could see there was a struggle, and they took the lion off the hill at that point, and our biggest concern was for Travis at that point. The following day, Larimer County, on part of their routine patrols and just doing their due diligence, they located a couple other lions in the area. And as a result, they called us, and they wisely shut down the trail system, as well as up in Laurie State Park, and our folks got to working on it again. From February 6th through the 9th, we had trail cameras set up with some bait sites to be able to see what we had. Did we actually have lions there? What did we have? And from our cameras, we were able to see a couple of young lions. We had no reason at that point to think we had a large female. At least we didn't have any evidence of her. We maybe found one track, but it was pretty undefinitive. And from the cameras, we were unable to see any large cats. It was young cats that we only saw. Beginning on February 9th, we set some live traps and continued with the cameras. On the morning of the 10th, we caught one young lion, and then on the morning of the 11th, we caught one young lion. Excuse me, I have those dates wrong. February 8th, we set the traps. February 9th, we caught one. February 10th, we caught the second one. I want to make sure I get those dates right. On the 10th, we had not seen any tracks that were associated with a larger lion, nor did we see anything on our cameras. We left it for another 24 hours. And on the morning of the 11th, after seeing no additional evidence or any sign that we had another lion in the area, we decided to stop our trapping situation, our trapping operations, and remove those. And the following day, Larimer County was able to open up their trails on February 12th. Those lions we live captured. We took them to our health lab. They're in good shape. The staff there wanted to let us know that they were indeed hungry. Some of the interesting things that we saw through the necropsy of the first lion was that the injuries sustained by the lion were consistent with everything Travis said. There was some blunt force trauma to the skull. There was some indication that it was asphyxiated, and all of the factorial things that he said were confirmed through this necropsy. It was negative for rabies, and the other interesting thing is that it looked like the animal had probably been eating some more vegetative matter than probably normal. Those lions have since been moved to a rehab facility. Our hope, plan, and intent is to release those lions again. We want to let them grow up, learn how to be adults, and release them back into the woods. I don't know what that time frame is. It really is kind of dependent on how those particular cats do. Travis is a pretty amazing young man. You're going to get to see it here in a second. I just want to emphasize again, this is a person who had no intent of this happening. And at the end of it all, he came out alive to tell you his story today. Thanks.
My name is Travis Kaufman. I am originally from Mountain Home, Arkansas, and I've been in Fort Collins for about 5 years now, a little bit over 5 years. I came out west for an active outdoor lifestyle, the good weather, pretty much the recreation in general, so getting into different new sports. So last year I really got into mountain biking, also kind of around that time trail running, but also a big downhill skier, some cross-country skiing. So the activities, this is a great state for just building up more and more hobbies. So I got into trail running really about a year ago. I would go out and usually do about 5 miles or so at the end of the work days, and I'd run in the trails, Foothills Trail like around town, the trails up at Lori, and then also into Horsetooth mountain space. So I was running on Monday, February 4th. I was going out, starting in Lori State Park, and I was gonna do between a 12 and 15 mile run. So starting from the Arthur's Rock parking lot, I ran along the South Valley trails through Lori Park, and then ended up linking up with Horsetooth Mountain Park. And from there, did my first Towers run of the year. It's actually the first time I've ran Towers. I've only mountain biked it before. But I just know it's an intense hill. It's really good for getting some hill training in. So I was a little bit nervous and jazzed up about actually just running the hill and getting that complete. So I was running up the hill, finally made it up to the top of Towers, and up there I went down on a trail to the south. I think it's called Pirate Trail, but others just call it West Ridge Trail. And so running along West Ridge Trail, I was planning on just going to Horsetooth Rock, but along the trail, there's some pretty icy conditions, and I was slipping a little bit more than I wanted to, so I turned back, and then I remember seeing a spur for West Ridge that went to the east of Towers, and so I took that spur, and then about a quarter mile into that run, I heard some pine needles rustle behind me, and luckily I was able to actually turn my head. I'd say more often than not, I would turn my head, but sometimes I wouldn't, thinking it's just a deer or a rabbit or any sort of small woodland creature. But in the back of my mind, there's always that thought that it could be something else, and that something else this time happened to be a mountain lion. So one of my worst fears was confirmed, and just kind of had like my heart sink into my stomach a little bit, and threw my hands up and started yelling. And when I first turned around, the cat was probably 10 feet away from me, and it just kept approaching. And as it got close, it just kind of lunged at me, so I threw my arms up, and it latched onto my wrist, so I was just kind of protecting my face. So yeah, it latched onto my wrist, and then it just started clawing along my face, and then my legs, and I was just kind of screaming the whole time, doing my barbarian yell as best I could. And I tried to throw it off of me, and as I tried to throw it off me, we both left the trail because it just re-gripped onto my wrist and kind of tumbled off the slope to the south side of the trail. And from there, it was just a wrestling match. It was thrashing, and then it still had my wrist locked in its jaws. And I was able to kind of get my left knee to pin down its back legs. Because as a pretty new cat owner, I realized that once you get a cat on its back legs go crazy, and that little rabbit thrash. And so I was pretty wary of the back claws actually hitting my guts or my groin or anything like that. So I was able to pin down its back legs with my left knee. And then the front paws, I don't actually remember what happened with those. I mean, I was kind of deflecting them with my left hand, but then I was grabbing at some sticks that were close by, and I was trying to stabbed it in the throat with some sticks. Unfortunately, the sticks were kind of rotten, so they kept on breaking. And then I was able to pick up a big rock with my left hand, and I was trying to hit it on the head with a big rock, but it was kind of a tough angle because my wrist is still in its mouth, and I'm not really getting a full swing, but I was able to kind of hit it in the back of the head a few times, and I just knew that it wasn't going to be super effective. So then I used just a little body weight transition and got my right leg close to my wrist and was able to finally get it onto the cat's neck. And then I stepped onto its neck and then eventually was able to suffocate it. And then it finally released from my wrist. And then after the incident, after I was able to finally get it to release by unfortunately killing it, I was able to run back to Towers Trail, but that whole run back, I was on a crazy high fear high. I don't know what you call it, but I was booked, and I was just realizing that all of these little rock overhangs are just like perfect lion territory, and like everything I was seeing. And I was looking down, and I was seeing some tracks in the snow because I was on the north-facing side of the mountain, and I was like, well, these are probably lion tracks now that I look closely enough. And so the fear was definitely tangible then. I ended up having to run another 3 miles down. Luckily, along the way, I came across a trail runner probably around mile 2 who was running up. So he saw my situation, accompanied me down. So we jogged down the remaining miles of Towers, and then ran into another couple pretty close to the Soderberg parking lot area of Horsetooth. And they had a cell phone, and I don't know if they actually contacted any rangers directly, but they followed us down to the parking lot. And then of that couple, this really nice woman, Rachel, she gave me a ride to the hospital, while the first runner I encountered, Spencer, he took her husband, Noah, to go get my truck at Lori. So I was parked at Lori, which is probably 6.5 miles from where the attack occurred, and then ended up on the south side. So we were at Soderberg parking lot, and that's where I got a ride to the hospital. So after I got to the hospital, they got me cleaned up, and then were able to kind of see the extent of the wounds. Everything, my face was just kind of a bloody mess when I first got there. So once everything got washed out, they knew they were going to have to give me some stitches along my cheek. So I ended up getting 17 stitches along my cheek here, and then another 6 along the bridge of my nose, and then 2 over here on this side of the cheek. And then I got another 3 stitches in my wrist where the lion had latched on for the majority of the fight. Other than that, it was just a bunch of, I have several puncture wounds that were just from teeth or claws, so nothing, no long gashes, just a lot of small little circle-sized things. And at the hospital, luckily, they pumped me full of a bunch of antibiotics, so hopefully all those puncture wounds don't amount to an infected wound. So far, I'm about a week out, and I feel great. Things are healing up really nicely. I think it's just one of those really weird, sensational stories. It's super rare. I feel like I should go buy a bunch of lottery tickets. But it's one of those things where it captures the imagination just because it's a modern-day man versus nature scenario, potentially. I know there's not that much of it. We get a little bit more disconnected as we've come through the 21st century. So I don't know, there's still, I think, a degree of aura and mystique around that there is certain scenarios where you can still kind of have a really dangerous and potentially deadly experience in nature. Yeah, my advice for people who would be a little bit more reluctant to go into the backcountry or open spaces is to, again, just be aware that you are sharing that space with wildlife. And one of the things that I'm really glad that I did was turn my head, and I couldn't have done that if I had earbuds in. So I think just to kind of fully appreciate the sights and sounds of nature, go without earbuds, and if you can, go with a buddy. That's something that I will be doing going forward, going and doing some of my more long remote runs with a friend, and also whenever mountain biking season comes around, doing the same.
I'd like to bring Travis up for opening of questions. Again, our staff, Larimer County Department of Natural Resources staff, will also be available to answer any questions that you may have. Travis is TravisKauffman. Travis, good to have you.
Hey everybody. Just a show of hands, who all is disappointed that I'm not, in fact, Chuck Norris? Yeah, I know. A pretty big letdown for everybody who thought I was a big beefy guy. So I guess I'd just like to start off by thanking some of the people that helped me on the way down. So let's see, we had Spencer, who was the first runner that I ran into. Very helpful guy, ran down, jogged with me, got to talk with him, kept me calm. And then Noah and Rachel. So yeah, Rachel was the lady that drove me to the hospital, kind of kept me calm. We talked during the car ride there. And then Noah, who was just a champ, went and got my truck, drove it to the hospital, dropped off my things so I could have my phone and contact my loved ones and let them know that a weird thing happened, but that I was okay. So I really appreciate their help. And then, of course, just my friends and family through all this. They've been really supportive and incredibly nice. So,
Can you move the microphone a little closer?
No, sure.
You need to turn that on. That's better. Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, thank yous aside, I guess I can take some questions now.
Can you tell us your experience from beginning to start? From the start to the end?
From the beginning to the end.
We'd like to hear it, and not have to rely on the video that we just saw. We want to hear you. What was your experience?
Okay. So my experience as, I know you guys saw the video, but in person. So I decided to go for a run last Monday, February 4th. It was around noontime. I wanted to go on a pretty long scenic run. I headed up to Laurie State Park, and I kind of had a predetermined route that I was going to go on. And I knew that I wanted to do towers because I just wanted to give myself a hill challenge. So ran through the south side of Laurie State Park, which is a couple miles, and then linked up with Towers Road, which is a really steep 4x4 road. It's about 9% grade on average, and it's a little under 3.5 miles to the top. So running up, successfully got through the run and felt pretty good. Up at the top, I was able to look around and really take in some of the views. So up there you can see Fort Collins and the Front Range to the east, and then to the west you can see the rest of the mountain ranges and the Rockies kind of descending into space. So it's super pretty, get a good 360 panorama. And at that point, I was planning on running south to actual Horsetooth Rock Peak, which is just the really iconic rock that you'll see on the east side of town when you look at the skyline. But I encountered some ice on the trail about a half mile in, so I turned back and then decided to peel off on the now infamous West Ridge Trail and cruise on that east to head and hook back up with Towers and then head down. But about a quarter mile into that run, I ended up hearing some pine needles rustle, like a stick break, and I turned around and just was pretty bummed out to see a mountain lion chasing after me. So I stopped and I threw my hands up in the air and I started shouting, and unfortunately the shouts didn't deter it, so it just kind of kept running and lunged at me. It was going toward my face, so I threw up my hands to kind of block my face, at which point it grabbed onto my hand and wrist, and from there it started to claw at my face and neck, and that's when kind of my fear response turned into more of a fight response, because I realized how close it was getting to my eyes, and it got a claw on my lip, and I tried to throw it off me at that point, and then we took a little tumble down the south side of the trail, and down there just kind of had a little wrestling match, at which point I was able to get on top of it, pin its back legs so I didn't get any soft tissue scratched out in my nether regions. And at that point, I was grabbing around for sticks. I only had my left hand free. My right hand was still locked in its jaws. Tried to get at its neck to see if I could stab it in the neck to get it to release. That wasn't working. The sticks were breaking. So then I picked up a rock that I had seen kind of near us. It was pretty heavy and it was kind of hard to wield. And I tried to give it a few bashes in the back of the head. But fortunately, I just kind of had a tough time swinging it with my arm still locked into the cat's jaws. Really wasn't working too well. At that point, I knew with two pretty good blows to the back of the head that it didn't release, that I was probably going to have to do something a little more drastic. And I was able to kind of shift my weight and get a foot on its neck. And at that point, I stepped on its neck with my right foot. And just slowly, after a few minutes, I thought I'd be getting close, and then it'd start thrashing again, and had a few more scratches that resulted from those thrashes at that point. And I'd say another couple of minutes later, it finally stopped moving, and then jaws opened, and I was able to kind of scramble back up the hill and get the heck out of Dodge.
How long did it all take from start to finish?
It's hard to say. I mean, I guess in my mind, if I replayed it, it seems like a long time, but I would think maybe 10 minutes at most. A lot of people who are attacked by other animals say that some of the most vivid memories they have are of what they heard and what they smelled. Can you talk about that? I was actually kind of surprised about the silence of it. There really wasn't any growls that I was hearing. I didn't hear any sort of cat noises that I would normally associate with a wild cat. The smells, I don't really remember the smells. I remember looking down and seeing the claws, like retracting and then coming out of its paws, and was just really looking at those because that's whenever the front paws were just kind of thrashing when I was on top of it. So it was really pretty visually intense, and I don't really remember that many smells per se.
Did that cliche kind of saying of your life flashing in front of your eyes, did you have a moment like that, or was it just pure adrenaline?
It was just pure adrenaline. There was a certain point where I kind of just imagined being stuck on this hillside and eventually just having a cat gnaw at me, which is a creepy way to go. But for the most part, the adrenaline just kind of kept kicking back in those moments. One of my big fears throughout the whole thing was another cat coming along, because it was a younger cat, and I could tell that it wasn't fully grown, and I was just very concerned that Mom was going to come out of nowhere, and at that point, that fight would be over pretty quickly.
Did you think you were not going to make it out of this? And after everything that you've been through, I got to know what you and Annie are doing for Valentine's Day.
There was a point where I was concerned that I wasn't going to make it out of it, and I think it might have been a mix of me tussling with the cat and it still clawing at me, and then thinking about another cat potentially coming along. And I just kind of had that wave of fear roll over me, and thought that I could just end up there and stay there. And luckily that wasn't the case, and I am able to spend Valentine's Day 2019 with my girlfriend Annie. And let's see, tonight, I don't know. What are you thinking? Mac and cheese?
Somehow haven't gotten around to plans.
Yeah, we'll see. The pain wasn't as intense as I would think it would be. That could also be for the fact that I just had really high doses of adrenaline coursing through my body. The thing that hurt the most was my wrist, and that's just where the cat had kind of latched on. And at one point, I just remember feeling jolts in my nerves in my fingers, just because one of the cat's tooth was inside the kind of meat of my palm, and I just felt it kind of hitting that nerve over and over again. So these two fingers were just kind of a little bit electric. And then it was grinding at, like after I hit it in the head with the rock, it started grinding its teeth back and forth, and I could hear kind of ligaments and tendons shifting around in there, and that, it hurt, but I also remember the sound of that was pretty disturbing. I was like, well, there goes all loss of function of my fingers, but luckily it's not the case.
What's it been like getting all of this attention? And has any of it been negative?
So far, everything has been really positive. I'm not a big internet guy, so I haven't really seen any of the negative stuff. It is weird getting all this attention. I don't know. It's kind of weird to feel kind of famous for like an unearned reason. It's very much like a situation of happenstance, where like a wrong place, wrong time, instead of an earned sort of degree of fame, I guess. So that's been pretty weird.
One of the local stations in Denver is calling you the King of the North, since we didn't know who you were until now. Just wondering what you make of the new reputation.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the hardest part, is I will never be able to live up to the reputation. And maybe that's what has led to some of my reticence for actually coming out, because I don't know, the story is bigger than my puny form. So yeah.
What do you think Chuck Norris would think?
Oh man, Chuck would have come out without a scratch. You know him. And he'd probably have the tiger slung over his shoulders too. Not a tiger, a lion. Sorry. Sure. Yeah, come over here. Get over here.
What did you think when you heard this story?
I just kind of couldn't make sense of what was happening. There was this weird sensation that, like, are you messing with me? Like, is this some weird joke? Like, what is happening? And then especially because I was in a meeting actually at work, a big meeting, and I had a presentation, and so I missed an unknown number when he first got to a phone and didn't really think anything of it. And then when I saw that I had a missed call from him after my presentation, I was a little bit concerned. It was just a little bit unusual that he would call me at that time, and so I just texted and just checking, sorry, I can't answer right now, I'm in a meeting, or is everything okay? And he started with, which I'm very glad, I'm okay, but I got attacked with I got by a mountain lion on my run, and I'm in the ER at PVH, and of course I jumped out of my chair and ran out of the meeting, and then we were able to talk for a couple of minutes, and then I think I must have asked him how he got away or something like that, and that's when he said that he'd killed it, and that's when I think it was like, what?
She totally didn't believe it.
I was like, yeah. So I think there was a level of just confusion, and then we didn't really talk on the phone for much after that. I was like, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Ran back into the meeting, grabbed my stuff, and was at the hospital in probably about 10 minutes. One of the scariest parts of that day anyway was getting to the hospital, and they told me which room he was in, so I ran and I found the room, and you have all this buildup in your mind of what you're going to turn around and see, and what's he going to say, and all that kind of stuff, and I turned into the room all pumped up on adrenaline probably too, and it was empty. Nobody was in there. And I turned around, and it was this that he was wearing during the attack with blood on it, and his hat that of course I recognized filled with blood inside of it. And so then I ran back out, and that's when they were wheeling him down the hallway. So I just yeah, ran to him, and I just remember saying, "Can I kiss him? Can I kiss him?"
This cheek, not that one.
Yeah. And the nurse was like, "I don't care if you kiss him." Yeah.
This was it, yeah. So I was actually really glad that I had on 2 long sleeves and a pair of gloves. So this thing took quite a bit of, a pretty good amount of beating. So yeah,
Andy, what do
glad
you
I had
think,
it.
though, when the first time you see his injuries? What goes through your mind?
I guess there was a part where I was just thankful that he had his eyes and like his fingers and all his parts, and it didn't look as bad as I maybe would have thought that it could have, because I saw him after they did sort of an initial cleanup too. When we were in the room together, there was definitely some times where I couldn't take my eyes off his cheek gash. That one was pretty intense to look at, but it was never like I felt like you couldn't look at him or anything like that. Just definitely just happy that he had all of his parts.
Travis, you're an outdoorsman, but had you ever given any serious thought to what you would do in a situation like this before it actually happened? Or did it seem remote to you?
I mean, a little bit. Just the kind of generalities behind it. So pretty much black bears and mountain lions you fight, grizzly bears you don't. So stuff like that. That's about it.
Did you instantly know what kind of animal you were dealing with?
Yeah. I kind of second-guessed myself when I was talking to Jason, who was the first officer that I spoke to after the event. I was like, well, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was a mountain lion. And then he's like, well, I think it might have been a bobcat. I was like, oh, it could have been a bobcat. Didn't really look at the tail too much. I was looking at teeth a lot. So, but yeah, I pretty quickly recognized it as a lion.
Do you have any background in martial arts or wrestling or anything like that?
0. Yeah. I feel like the only actual martial arts experience I have is I sometimes do the insanity workout tapes, and he does like the power jabs at the end. That's about it. Pardon? Yeah. You're welcome, Sean T.
How old are you? How tall are you? How much do you weigh?
I'm 31. I'm 5'10", and I weigh about 150, 155 pounds.
How many cats do you have?
1.
And getting rid of it?
No. Yeah,
No.
so far he's been a real sweetheart. I feel like he knows that something's up, so he's been extra nice to me and has kept his claws in the paws.
Do you have any sort of PTSD from this?
No. I think one of the main reasons is, for the most part, I feel really fortunate that the situation turned out the way that it did. And I really feel like I made all the right decisions whenever I had to. So, and then the decisions that I did make were pretty instinctual. It really wasn't like a super like thought-provoking moment where I had to come to a conclusion to make any sort of decision, I guess.
You moved to Colorado to pursue this outdoor life.
Pardon?
I said you moved to Colorado to pursue a life in the outdoors.
Yes.
Did this change your mind?
No, not at all. It's definitely a very unique state that you can actually see wildlife. It's usually better at a distance, but I mean, I can't get over the number of hobbies that I've adopted since I moved here, and also consequently like the amount of money that I spend on maintaining those hobbies. But it's just one of those things where I feel like this state has made me younger moving out here.
Are those areas safe to run in, looking back at what happened and given your experience? Are those areas and those trails safe for a runner?
I would say so, yeah. Just because I know several people who run up there all the time. I mean, just the statistical probability of it is so remote. It's just a really weird kind of anecdotal experience that I have where I'm like the one outlier. So I will go run those trails again. I will go with a buddy though.
What was it like to go back when with Colorado Parks and Wildlife officers and kind of retrace your route?
It was cathartic. It was a little creepy though at times. I remember when we got to the area where you kind of see some of that pine growth start and see the bed of pine needles on the ground. I'm like, well, yeah, this is, you know, right in the area. So I was looking around, kind of taking in the scene, and then when we got to the point on the trail where Jason had kind of shown me where the fight had ensued because of the disturbed pine needles, I remember just looking back and remembering where that cat was framed in the trees. So yeah, it was good. I'm glad I did it, but yeah, it was definitely a little eerie.
What would you say that the runners? What would you say that the runners?
Sorry, in the back?
Running with a buddy now, are you going to consider maybe taking a knife with you or a stick or something for protection?
I would potentially consider a knife, but yeah.
Strength-wise, do you think because it was a smaller cat, you were going to match?
Yes.
What would you say that the runners, so that they're situationally aware when they're out on the trail?
Kind of like I had just reiterated, or I had said in the video, don't run with headphones in some of those really more remote areas. And yeah, just kind of keep all your senses open and take in whatever's happening, because you could easily have been in an area where there weren't pine needles on the ground and it'd just be a flash of movement that could catch your eye. And then at that point, turning is really important so you don't get something on the back of the neck.
What was the reaction of the doctors at the hospital when they saw you? Was it like, we've never seen anything like this before, or this is a 1 in a million, or what kind of reaction did you get from the doc?
Yeah, I remember asking them, the PA that stitched me up, I asked her if she had ever had a mountain lion attack before, and she said, no, we had kind of like a weird fake bear attack last year, but never a mountain lion attack. And I was kind of surprised on that. And even when I checked in, because I got dropped off at the front door by Rachel, and I kind of walked through the metal detector, and like, so what's your issue? And I said, well, I was attacked by a mountain lion. And then the lady just kind of was like, oh, you're serious? And so they admitted me to the back, and then definitely started giving me some really great care, like right off the bat.
What do you like about trail running? Are you still doing the 30-30?
I like the remote aspect of trail running, and I like just the change in terrain. It mixes it up. I feel like running on flat roads can really get dull after a while, and I'm definitely still doing the 30-30.
How's training going?
This week it got set back a little bit. I've been on a few runs since the incident, but nothing more than 10 miles. So I'm glad that I still have like pretty good range of motion in all my other body parts besides my wrist.
Has it changed your outlook on life at all?
A little bit, but really not too much. It's weird having a potentially life-threatening scenario. I mean, it may not be necessarily my first. I've had a bad car wreck when I was younger, but this is the first one where it's like a life-threatening situation where you have to kind of actively work your way out of it instead of just passively sit by and hope that things turn out. So, yeah.
There's no physical therapy or anything else you have to go through?
I just have like a sheet of some exercises that I have to do for my hand, and then I have to go in for another checkup. But yeah, nothing really too intense. I may have been in one fight when I was 4 years old with my cousin or something, but that's about it. We'll see. We'll see if people actually pay up.
Do you hunt at all, and did you have any thought or interest in maybe mounting the animal on your wall as a trophy?
I don't have any interest in mounting it. I have hunted in the past, but there's always like ducks and pheasants, so just birds. I've never hunted a mammal before.
Can you clarify the timing as well? You said the whole thing took about 10 minutes, but how long do you think it took to actually self-hunt the animal?
I would say 3 minutes or so, potentially.
How long do you think it took you to run the 3 miles back? The fastest you've ever done?
Not the fastest, because on the way down, one of the crummier parts was that Towers is still pretty icy in a lot of areas. So maybe about a mile in, I hit a good icy patch and started sliding, and I had to slow my roll a little bit and tell myself, don't break an ankle along with getting attacked by a mountain lion today.
Your thoughts one more time about running again, running the mountains, what are your thoughts?
Pardon?
Your thoughts one more time about returning and running in the mountains again, what are your final thoughts
Yeah, I'm definitely just I'm not deterred by running in the mountains again. I am probably gonna have a little cooling off period for a week or so. I'm actually gonna be going on vacation, so I'm excited about that. But once I get back, I will definitely be hitting up Laurie State Park and Horsetooth Mountain Space soon. Get back on the trails and try to get some more training in so I can not completely fail at the Dirty 30.
Where are you going for vacation?
Somewhere out of the country.
Stay in touch with Rachel that took you to the hospital?
Yeah, I actually received a text message from them last night and give me some well wishes. And when we get back from vacation, we're going to have to take them out to dinner and thank them.
Are there any of them here at the press?
I don't think so.
Do you have any advice for if someone comes across a mountain lion?
Just kind of what CPW and a lot of agencies have iterated. Stand your ground. Don't turn and run away. Make noise. Make yourself look big. And if necessary, fight it.
Any plans to write like a survival guide or maybe like a book or something?
It'd probably just be a pamphlet because it's not very long.
I know this is a life-threatening experience, pulling the cat. Is that something that was like automatic, or did you just kind of realize that that's what you were going to have to do to get away from it?
So killing the cat, yeah. It really clicked after I hit it in the head with a rock, and it still didn't release my wrist. That at that point, more drastic measures were necessary.
What are your thoughts on the cat and that one? It was a life-threatening experience, but do you think about the cat?
I do. I mean, not in any sort of form of regret, but it's one of those just really unfortunate situations where we're both in the wrong place at the wrong time. But
I have a question for Andy. How are you handling the increased attention from emails?
We already got marriage proposals and
Yeah, one of my coworkers, her first reaction when she found out it was Travis was, "You got to lock that down." But I mean, I guess I haven't. It's been something to kind of chuckle at, but I haven't had too big of a reaction to it. I guess there was one that said something about how he's not going to have any trouble getting dates, and I just thought, nope, he won't, because I'll be taking him on some dates. They will be with me.
Do you have any sense of why the animal attacked you? I mean, we've heard that these types of animals don't generally attack if they have an escape route. Do you think that maybe it had nowhere to go? Thought it had nowhere to go?
I've learned quite a few things about mountain lions over the past couple weeks, and then one of which was that in this particular age range tends to be their most aggressive, and I think also for the fact that it wasn't an experienced hunter, it couldn't readily identify me as not prey. So it was definitely pursuing me as I was prey, but I think that's kind of why I just kept going.
Are you planning on doing any of the press after this?
I haven't really fully considered it yet.
You mentioned some precautions you can take, and what I'm getting at is you said run with a buddy, don't wear earbuds. I found that interesting. You said it in the video. You say it for us here.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, one of the other added benefits of not running with earbuds in is during the summertime, whenever there's a bunch of mountain bikers, you don't get smashed by a mountain biker running behind you. So it's great to have some sort of awareness about you whenever you're actually out in the middle of nowhere.
As an environmental consultant, does that play into what happened with you at all? Did your experience background change?
I mean, not necessarily. I do work in a lot of remote areas, so there is a certain interaction with wildlife, but it's mostly rattlesnakes, and that's usually my primary fear when I'm actually running up around here too. But I guess in those in whatever trainings we have for working remotely, there is definitely some safety things that we go through, and so yeah, some of that could have been pretty beneficial in kind of staying calm and really like assessing your situation appropriately.
Have you gone back to work yet, and what have your colleagues and friends said about
I actually have not gone back to work. My company has been very supportive and really understanding, and I think they kind of just knew if I was out in the field and I encountered anybody, I'd just be bombarded with questions all the time. So they've been really nice and kind of have let me work from home and do some stuff that's a little bit more low-key. So it's been great.
What do you do for a living?
So I work for an environmental consulting company, and I do stormwater management projects for oil and gas construction sites, and then also the reclamation projects after the sites are done with construction phase.
And just for the record, could you say your name and how you spell it, please?
It's Travis Kaufman. That's Travis Kauffman.
And I'm looking for Annie's spelling.
Annie Bierbauer. My last name's spelled Bierbower.
Nick Clark just said he gave you free entry to the Quad Rock 45 in the same trail. Would you go back up there and race that, or not yet?
Potentially. I don't know. I don't know when that race is.
May 11th.
May 11th. Be a back-to-back grinder, but potentially. It wouldn't. It's not out of the question. I guess King of the North. I just heard that one. That's about it. That's a new one.
Did you choose the shorter route down on Westwood? You could have went one or two ways, and you chose to come down Towers Road to Solid Road Park.
Yep.
That's probably the shorter route than going back the other way, back to where your car was. Your car was on the trailhead.
Yes.
So, and that's when you encountered how really big roads.
Right. Yeah. I figured my likelihood of running into somebody on towers is way higher than actually going on some of the single track trails.
Not many people make it up to Westwood.
Yeah.
Did you tell your friends immediately after this happened? Was it tough to kind of keep the story under wraps a little bit?
Yeah, a few of my close friends, they heard about it the next day just because they had sent me the article that an unknown jogger was attacked while running up at Horsetooth. And I said, well, this is my buddy Sam and Brad. It's like, well, that was actually me. And they freaked out.
Is it weird to have everyone kind of know about your story and everyone wanting to know who's behind that story?
Yeah, it is weird. That's about all I have to say about that.
What's your favorite reaction that you've gotten?
I honestly haven't looked at too many of them, so I don't know. My mom, she actually dealt with it better than I thought she would. I thought she'd be pretty freaked out, but she took it with a certain degree of calm that I had not fully expected. But yeah, I just kind of started off with, I have some weird news. I'm okay, but I was attacked by a mountain lion. At which point, it kind of took a while for the gears to turn, and she said, what? So she took it very well and was just really glad that I came out as I have.
Is there an account for how much this cat weighed in comparison to your weight?
If I were to guess, I would say in the 50-pound range. I couldn't say for sure. I know that they had trouble actually getting an accurate weight because of the potentially cannibalistic behavior after the fact. So, yeah, I don't know.
Did the lion feel heavy on you when he was attacking, or was there a lot of movement?
Yeah, there's a lot of movement, and I didn't have any sense of weight at that point. I feel like I was just kind of electrified in other ways.
What was the first thing you thought when you realized the cat was over?
I was still very concerned about other cats in the area. So yeah, I got back on the trail, and I was just telling myself that I had to keep running, and kept my head on a swivel, looking around for any sign of movement, any break of a stick. It's kind of tough because that whole trail, that portion of it at least, there's a bunch of rock overhangs on the uphill side of it, and so the potential for ambush was kind of in the back of my mind. And my goal was to make it back to Towers, which is a much more open 4x4 dirt road that goes up. So once I made it there, I kind of gave out a little sigh of relief.
I assume you agreed at the beginning of the news conference, which is that if this had been an older cat, a bigger cat, a more experienced hunter, that the outcome might have been quite different from what it was.
Yeah, I would say the outcome would have, that the cat would have come out on top. But also knowing what I've what I've learned recently about cats, that's really highly atypical behavior for an adult. They tend to know way better what is prey and what is not prey.
Roughly how big was the animal?
I would say it would probably be about yay long, and then probably a little bit shorter than the height of this table.
And you seem, reluctant to be in the spotlight. Did you ever give any thought to just not coming forward at all and just letting the legend live on?
Yeah, a little bit, but I also kind of heard that once an investigation comes to a close, that a name is open for release through Colorado Open Records Act. So at least at that point, I can tell my story kind of first and foremost and get out in front of it a little bit.
And you were taken to Cougar Valley Hospital? Is that where you went?
Yeah. Yeah, they did a great job. Their stitches were top-notch.
Travis, you said in the video that you focused on back legs because you were afraid of the back legs coming at you. Any experience with a cat and dealing with a cat, or
Just a house cat. That's about it.
did it ever scratch you with the back leg? Or did you ever have that kind of experience with owning a cat? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think I've only been a cat dad for, 6 months now? Something like that. Oh, yeah. Anytime I play with him, he gets on his back, he'll just kind of go crazy with those back legs and start scratching. And usually I have on my long sleeve sweater or something to help deflect those blows, but it's definitely a good thing to know in that situation.
Are you a dog person then?
Yeah, I'm always a dog person.
What's the cat's name?
Obi.
You thought it was going to be like a 2.5 hour run when you went out for 12 miles?
Yeah, I figured, I didn't know for sure. I tend to kind of improvise and see what the trail conditions present because it's dicey up there. You don't really know what trails are going to be super icy or super muddy or what. So, and just kind of assess how I feel too at a certain point. I got up to the top and I felt good. So I probably could have done the 15 that day, but you got cut a little bit short.
Did you take traction or think about it or no?
No.
Were they in your truck at all or just take it?
I don't have any.
Okay. What
Yeah.
shoes did you have on?
Asics GT 2000s.
So we have time for a couple more questions before we wrap this up. So if we want to at least get maybe one or two more on the table, and then we'll wrap this press conference up.
What have you learned about yourself?
Oh, man. That's the toughest question of the day. I guess really that in kind of those really tough, scary situations, that if you kind of stay a little bit calm, which I luckily feel like I'm pretty okay at, if you stay pretty calm, hopefully you can use that to your advantage a little bit and get yourself out of a sticky situation.
Do you think you'll be more or less confident next time you go out into the outdoors?
A little bit less. Yeah, I mean, I've been out running, and I feel like I am a little bit more jittery than I had been, but I kind of really analyze all of the paw print tracks that I see now. I'm like, oh, do I see claws? Does it look like it's a rounded paw like a cat, or is it a dog? So I'm maybe not jittery, just more investigative.
How long were the claws?
I couldn't say for sure. Maybe the size of this like first set of the digit. Couldn't tell though.
What did the cat's breath smell like?
I don't know. Whatever hand soap I use, I guess.
Travis, was there a moment of disbelief that this was happening to you? Like, oh my God, it's a mountain lion coming at me.
Yeah, the whole.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, right when I turned and saw it, it was definitely disbelief, and then just kind of the shock of the situation, and the fear, and then finally kind of the instinct to fight. So yeah, it was kind of that trajectory that those emotions followed. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when I turned. Like, no way, no way.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for your
Yeah.
time. Travis, Annie, thank you for
Yeah,
joining us
thanks,
this
guys.
afternoon. Travis, we'll have you come back to this up. Thank you guys very much. Thank you guys. And we will be sending out a follow-up press kit with all of the digital interview. We'll have digital copies of stills for your use. Those should be in your inboxes momentarily. If you have any other follow-up, please let us know.
Did you have video of you the transmitters on the Texas cat?
I'm getting those. I do have some stills, but I'm looking to see if we have video. And those stills should be in the press kit.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Yes, so we have your email address.